The Oscars coming up. I've been so excited to do this list, is revisiting this last decade of Best Picture winners and ranking them from worst to best. Now, of course, this is my personal list. You might not agree with it, but that's okay. So make sure to comment down below. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are on my list. Do you guys agree with it? Do you not? Let's discuss it again. Personal subjective list. You might not agree with it, and that's fine. And if you guys enjoy content like this, I do this on a daily basis. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe for all sorts of early content, early movie reviews, movie news, all sorts of stuff coming to you guys. So guys, of course, let's get started right now. Down at my number 10 is going to be The King's Speech. This is one that has never really gravitated to me when it comes down to a story perspective. It is a very heartwarming story, and I really like the dynamics that are going about within Colin Firth's character, but there's something about Tom Hooper's direction. I'm not just saying this because of Cats. Maybe I kind of am, but there's just something about it that has never appealed to me to go back and rewatch this movie, besides looking at all the performances. Jeffrey Rush, though, is an accomplishment in its own for what he did, and it's truly given one of the best performances of the last decade from him inside The King's Speech, even with Colin Firth. Colin Firth is an excellent actor. When it comes down to this movie, I don't think it should have won Best Picture, and I also think it was a good movie. Doesn't ever appeal to me. But coming in at my number 9 is going to be The Artist. Now, what a movie that really surprised me. I actually just saw this for the first time just a couple years back after Griffin Schiller from Film Speak really recommended, saying like, this movie's so underrated. And I agree, it is a great one. But again, it kind of falls in that same category that I don't care to rewatch this movie. It didn't hit me in an emotional way, but it made me go back and take me back to the days of watching silent black and white films. And I love what The Artist is able to say about Hollywood in general. And I totally see why it won. I mean, you see from the production design to all the acting and everything in general, you see why this film won Best Picture, but you also see because it appeals to all the cinephiles and Hollywood people in Oscars, and when they're voting, they're looking at this movie and be like, yeah, that's a Best Picture winner right there. And coming up, my number 8 is going to be Green Book. Now, I really like this movie. I called it that it was going to win Best Picture right as I saw it, and it's because it's a heartwarming movie. Yes, does it deal with race in the best light? No. And should it have gone into a more meaningful way? Absolutely. There's many things that you can say about Green Book, but when I'm speaking about it just as a movie, I enjoyed it. It brought a smile to my face. I love these friendships tales, and I know that's kind of something that people don't want to hear when you're talking about Green Book, but there's just something about this movie that really won me over by the end of the day, and it's one of those ones that I love Viggo Mortensen, I love Mahershala Ali, and I love what they were able to bring with their dynamics inside this movie. And coming up, my number 7 is going to be The Hurt Locker, one of the most intense experiences I've ever felt inside the theater, and actually my first introduction to Jeremy Renner himself inside the movie landscape. What Catherine Bigelow was able to bring to this movie is quite a feast for the eyes. It's a beautiful looking movie. It's an intense one, but it also just dives into it. I was actually quite surprised to see that this film won Best Picture, but I was happy that it did by the end of the day because it is truly an accomplishment when it comes to filmmaking. And coming up, my number 6 is going to be 12 Years a Slave. Wow, this is a movie I never want to rewatch, but it's one that is stuck in the back of my mind. The performances in this film are mind-numbing, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a great way. They're terrifying. They're emotionally, and when you look at every single performance in here, it just really hits you hard. The direction in here is phenomenal. The writing, again, this is a movie that you don't say, hey, let's watch 12 Years a Slave. But it's one that really gravitates with you and just moves you along into the story, making you feel like you were there with the journey. And when a film is able to do that, it's quite a dynamic chase in that mind. And I really like what they were able to do with 12 Years a Slave. I think this movie speaks a lot of levels, and in a sense, it's actually quite timely. Before I get to my top 5, guys, make sure again to hit that like and subscribe button. Comment down below. Let me know what your ranking is. Let me know what film you guys think are going to win Best Picture this year. And of course, guys, thank you guys so much for all the support. If you guys are interested in seeing movies early, head over to Sandwich on Films as well. Link down below. And of course, just a big thank you to you and a big thank you to my Patreon supporters, because without you, I wouldn't be able to do this. Coming in, my number 5 is going to be Shape of Water. I'm in the minority. I love this movie to death. I love rewatching it. And there's just something about this that when I saw it for the first time, I was so in love with it. And I saw it for a second time and fell in love with it even more. This is a total fairy tale. And I love how Del Toro was able to shape that inside this movie. I was actually quite shocked when it won Best Picture. I did not expect it to win Best Picture, but I was happy that it did in the end of the day because Del Toro deserves it. He's such a great director. And just seeing that he finally got his Oscar due was great. Maybe this is kind of more of like, hey, we didn't hook you up with Pan's Labyrinth. We're going to hook you up with this one. And it deserved it by the end of the day. The performances in here are great. Sally is triumphant. I actually think it should have been between her and Margot Robbie to win Best Actress because they were both phenomenal that year. But there's just something about this movie and the way that it makes you care for this love story that's kind of going about. In a sense, I remember, though, there's this older lady at my work that said, I'll never watch that. A girl having sex with a fish. Okay, but you like Beauty and the Beast, right? It's the same story, just with a fish man. And I like that dynamic. I like that. I will also add in, I actually just really like what the story is able to tell about being different and unique and kind of finding your match made in heaven. Yeah, my number 4, though, is Moonlight. What a big surprise this won Best Picture, because it actually was a surprise. They messed up the Oscars. How do you do that? I love Moonlight, though. This is one of those movies that kind of just, the more that you watch it, the more that you see the dynamics of the performances of it, the vibrance of it, Barry Jenkins' directing of it, all the passion behind this film. There's just so much to Moonlight that really strikes me every single time I happen to rewatch this movie, or in general find it and have a great discussion with someone. It's one of those movies that really kind of ties and deep dives you into your soul, and it's just one of those ones that I've just been very much impressed. And even though it won over La La Land, which I love La La Land, I would say that was a really stacked year, and the fact that Moonlight did win over La La Land is just, it made me happy to see that in the very least. I mean, my number 3 is going to be Argo. Go fuck yourself. If you've ever seen the movie, you'll understand that line. I loved Argo, and I love Ben Affleck's directing. The guy should have won Best DGA. He should have won he did win Best DGA. He wasn't even nominated for directing. Should have won for directing. But Argo is one of my favorite films of this last decade as well. I love what Ben Affleck has been able to do as a director, and how he was able to tell the story in Argo. How thrilling it was. How on the edge of your seat it was. My grandma loved this movie so much, she wanted to go see it again with me when it came out in theaters, and I was so happy that I got to go see it with her again, because Argo has been one of those movie memories that when I saw it in the theaters for the first time, I enjoyed it so much, and it's been one of those ones that I like to rewatch every single year. I mean, my number 2 is going to be Spotlight. Man, this is a gut punch to the stomach. I love this movie. It's one that I don't, again, kind of going to that feeling of, I don't want to rewatch, but sometimes I gravitate to rewatching it. This is filmmaking at its finest, and I think Michael Keaton's performance in here, Rachel McAdams, Mark Ruffalo, their performances in here are excellent and top tier, but it's a timely story that is one that many people should see, and it's one that really is heart-wrenching, while at the same time a gut punch, like I've already stated. It's one that disgusts you, makes you feel sick, and it's a horrifying story, but it's based on true events. And it's something about that when you dive in the Spotlight and see why it won, it deserved the win. But coming up, my number 1 favorite Best Picture winner, it's Birdman. This is the movie that I probably rewatched the most out of this list. It's the one that I fall in love with so much more every single time I've watched it. And even the first time I remember seeing this movie, this is kind of when I'm starting to get into film a lot more. I've always loved movies, but this is when I started to analyze. It was a little bit after this movie, was the fact that this is the first movie I ever saw that was a one-shot take. Given it was edited like that, but it was just brilliant how they were able to do it. And Michael Keaton is triumphant in here. I actually think he should have won Best Actor that year. Emma Stone is excellent in this movie. Edward Norton, God, great. Zach Galifianakis, great. There's not a single weak link in here, and the fact that Inarritu made this movie and then went straight to making The Revenant is a the guy is a great director, and you can definitely see it in there. I love Birdman. I love for everything it states. I love the score, and it's one of those movies that I just can't get enough of. As that's going to be my ranking of all the Best Picture winners from this last decade. Make sure to comment down below. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are on this list. Do you guys agree with it? Do you not? Remember, my list is personal. Your list might be different. That's great. Thank you guys again so much for all the support, and of course, until next time, stay classy.